today also we will discuss 3 articles from The Hindu, and we will understand those articles from the perspectives of answer writing, how a question can be framed entirely based on those articles. So this is the first article. It is actually an explainer and it relates to India's E20 push. So this article beautifully talks about how the what is actually E20. So it beautifully defines E20 over here, and then it also talks about how the ethanol is being manufactured, how it is being sourced, what are the different sources of ethanol, and then it focuses on how ethanol blended petrol can actually impact our engine of the vehicles. What is the difference between how is like E5, E10 and presently E20? And then it talks about some hasty implementation, compares it with Brazil, that how the government of India should have implemented E20 in a gradual way. So very beautiful article loaded with information. We will understand it through this question. So energy transitions entail, first thing is energy transition, it entail both opportunities and challenges. So this question is not directly starting at the start, it is not mentioning E20. So their success depends on how effectively the transition is managed, right? So first thing, it is about energy transition, and you need to examine this in context of E20 fuel. So first is energy transition, and you will need to write about the opportunities and challenges, means positives and negatives of any kind of energy transition, but we will write more specifically with respect to E20. And then we will write about how the implementation of any policy also impacts its effectiveness. So how would you approach this answer? The first thing that you will define, you can simply define energy transition. A simple definition of energy transition, but it should be with respect to E20. So very beautiful definition given over here is that the ethanol, so that when the 20% of petrol used in transport vehicle could come from ethanol produced in India. So 20% of petrol used in transport vehicles, that should come from ethanol. So understand this way, that suppose there is 100 liter of pure petrol. This is 100 liter of pure petrol. When we say E20, that means it will be 80 liter of petrol plus 20 liter of ethanol. So means 20% has been blended with ethanol. This is the core meaning of ethanol. So you can define energy transition with respect to E20, and you could have made it. You can make it this small infographic, you can say, or you can small that chart to make it more understandable. After that, we need to highlight the various opportunities. What are the various opportunities related to energy transition, particularly with respect to E20? The first major opportunity that is being highlighted over here is related to crude imports. So if suppose we are this 100 liter pure petrol to manufacture, to get 100 liter pure petrol, you will be needing more quantity of crude oil imports. But if you reduce it to 80 and 20 can be sourced from ethanol, then obviously your crude imports will also go down. So it says that very good example that nearly, where it went, somewhere it was written that nearly 32 millions, it was saying 32 millions were sourced from 32 million, it was saying, I just forgot, somewhere it was saying that crude imports, it was saying that nearly 32 million tons got like our imports got reduced 32 million by 32 million. So like earlier, whatever we were importing, we are now importing less than 32 million. Let me find it out for you. Just wait a second. So somewhere it was written. Yes, here it is. So substituting of some 32 million tons of crude oil imports. So 32 million imports can be reduced. It actually got substituted. So this 32 million tons of crude oil imports were actually substituted by ethanol. Up to, it is giving some date also, like up to in August. So that's a very good improvement in terms of, you can connect it with the forex savings. You can connect it with forex savings, that it will help improve our forex savings. Second opportunity that it provides is additional sources of income for farmers and producers related to sugarcane, rice, molasses, etc. So like those people, though the farmers, the manufacturers, or the business people dealing with these sectors, they can have additional source of income. They can like channelize their rice for towards ethanol production as well. So that is another benefit, another opportunity related to this energy transition. Now we will come to look at the challenges. The very important challenge here is that is being identified in this article is about readiness of vehicles. So it says that if the vehicle has been bought after April 2023, then it is then there is no issue, no challenge, because those vehicles are factory engineered for E20, and they amount to nearly 23% of our vehicle fleet. But the remaining 77% of our vehicle fleet, like two-wheelers and cars, they are built for E5 and E20. That itself is a very big challenge. Like if the 70% means that like more than 3/4 of your vehicle fleet is not yet ready for E20, then if you start pumping E20 fuel in those vehicles, there will be losses, or there will be challenges related to, it will impact the damage to vehicles. Here they are like giving how E20 fuel can damage vehicle. Those much details are not required, but because those are quite technical, but still you can learn a little bit. Like ethanol is a polar solvent that degrades older rubber compounds and plastics, so it hardens, cracking fuel hoses over time. So if the vehicle is not yet ready for E20, and if we are fueling it with E20, then obviously there will be damage to vehicles. And if that damage starts happening, which actually started, then it will lead to loss to users. और किसी ने अगर पैसा लगा के गाड़ी खरीदा है, अपनी मेहनत की कमाई लगा करके, अगर उसकी गाड़ी खराब होगी, तो there will be hell lot of socio-political consequences. Now this socio-political consequences stuff is not written in this article, but I just wanted you to learn how to interconnect multiple dimensions, even it is the question is not related to that. So like socio-political consequences कैसे हो सकते हैं भाई? So like there will be misinformation, rumors, बहुत जल्दी spread करेगा, people will start fearing, and there will be like discourse against government, against establishment. There may be instability. हर लोग गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ उल्टा सीधा बोलना शुरू करेंगे, and like they may threat the stability of the government as a whole. So एक बहुत बड़ा challenge है. Second challenge associated here is that actually relates to how you are like any threat related to diversion to ethanol. So suppose we have staple crops like rice, or like whatever we are using, like it is coming from maize, coming from rice, coming from sugar canes, coming from molasses, coming from food grains. If for the sake of more benefit, more profit, the diversion of these food grains starts happening, then food grains may go down, and their more proper usage will also decline. So this is also a major challenge that has been briefly, very beautifully been identified in this article. Now This question was simply examined, and also this is very long article, and the question is examined, so we won't be writing too much of way forward, but we can conclude this answer by writing a statement that is actually visionary and that is actually looking like a way forward. How we can write that? We can, whatever it is saying regarding a stakeholder engagement, we can write a way forward that taking people or a stakeholder in confidence, taking people or stakeholders in confidence before implementing any policy or gradual implementation of policy if we can write like this, then there will be wider acceptance. And these things are actually already written in this article. So I am just trying to make you understand how to pick up which points can be associated with challenges, which points can be associated with way forward. So if you are able to identify those points from a news article, then your newspaper reading will be very effective. So that is the purpose of all this session. Now we will move to our second article. Second article is very small one, and the next two articles from today's The Hindu are actually, you can say that they do not seem important. And a couple of you, most of you will be like missing those articles. You will feel that this article is not that important because the matter is still like just appearing to be in Supreme Court. So the first article, that both demolition and rehabilitation are duties of the government, says Supreme Court. So a case appeared in the case reached Supreme Court that government, first of all, for example, take the example of some dwellers. They take up a place in the urban areas and they occupy the place. Initially, municipalities and urban bodies do not take action. But suddenly when to implement rules and regulations, they start demolishing the settlements without any provision for their rehabilitation. So this matter reached the Supreme Court. Now this is a very good matter, and in future you can expect some better rules and regulations and better directives by the Supreme Court on this matter. Try to understand this way, that how can the state uphold urban planning regulations while protecting vulnerable households from arbitrary displacement? So how can arbitrary displacement be checked, be handled, be tackled? But it is also important to uphold urban planning regulations. So the challenge is urban planning regulation versus vulnerable households and arbitrary displacement. So this is the core theme of this article. दिखने में बहुत छोटा लगेगा, चांसेस हैं कि हम लोग इसको we will miss it out, कि ज़्यादा इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं, इसको बाद में देख लेंगे. But the types of points and arguments given over here, keywords given over here, they are actually very important. Let me illustrate you. So first thing first, how to tackle question like this? First thing, you can understand it is talking about urban planning regulations, and it is also talking about vulnerable households. So in the introduction you can connect that how population, poverty and lack of opportunities leading to कांग्रेगेशन, एक जगह पे जमा हो रहे हैं अर्बन एरियाज में. कौन लोग जमा हो रहे हैं? वल्नरेबल सेक्शंस. यही हो रहा है ना. They are migrating from their homeland, from their villages or from their tier 3 cities, rural areas. They are migrating to the urban areas for the sake of better livelihood opportunities. और शहरों में रहने की जगह नहीं है, they are very costly. So wherever they are finding a quiet place, जहाँ उन्हें सड़क किनारे जगह मिल रही है, कोई locality मिल रही है, they are putting up their settlements over there and they started living over there. And with the time वहाँ पे रहते जा रहे हैं, and it has its own consequences, challenges. What are the consequences? We need to identify the consequences first. First one is encroachment. That is very obvious. Encroachment is happening, and with the time, the people start claiming right on the land. भाई हम यहाँ पे 10 साल से रह रहे हैं, अब ये ज़मीन हमारी होगी, हम कहाँ जाएंगे? वैलिड पॉइंट. बट इस चीज़ को अगर प्रमोट करेंगे तो सब लोग ऐसे ही काम करेंगे, कोई भी कब्जा कर लेगा और कहेगा कि ये तो ज़मीन हमारी है. सो दिस एनक्रोचमेंट एंड द सब्सिक्वेंट क्लेम ऑन लैंड इज वन ऑफ द मेजर कॉन्सिक्वेंसेस. देन देयर आर थ्रेट्स टू लॉ एंड ऑर्डर. आपको पता नहीं है what kind of people are residing over there, whether they are illegal migrants, whether they are eligible persons. So, and very often when poverty and this lack of opportunity strikes, people often get into the illegal activities like theft, robbery. So law and order situation is also being threatened if the unregulated settlements are being promoted. Third very important one is it disincentivizes the law abiding citizens. If people think that you need not buy or purchase a land through your hard work, you can merely encroach a land and you can claim title over it, then that will be very disincentivizing situation for the people who are actually law abiding. So these are the major consequences. Obviously you need to write the consequences which takes care of the vulnerable sections or vulnerable households as well. You need not degrade, you must not degrade the vulnerable sections, that they are always wrong. You need to have some empathy towards their concerns and towards their poverty ridden situation as well. Now to handle this kind of situations, how does the government respond? What is the government's response? First is there are different approaches across union and states. There is no uniformity. Some states follow different approach, other states follow very lenient approach, and in some states this is not at all a problem. There is lack of proactiveness. When these settlements or slums are being set up, in that initial date, those initial days, government, for the sake of vote bank politics or whatever reasons, they do not take action and they promote the settlements. Badhiya hai, laga lo settlements. But when the urban regulations check in means when urban regulations creep in, when it is important to enforce urban regulations and management, then that leads to demolition drives. This is what is being written in this article, that initially people are paying some taxes and then suddenly you start demolishing without any rehabilitation. So this is something they are allowed to convert their properties to freeholds only to be thrown out into the streets one fine day after their homes are demolished as illegal structures. So शुरुआत में you are collecting taxes, you are allowing them to reside, but suddenly due to just change of your policy, some of your policy, or merely you feel that this is not good for urban areas, you start demolition drives. There is no sustainable solution. There is no sustainable solution of these issues. There is no rehabilitation. So today you are demolishing, they are getting evicted. Tomorrow they will go to some other place. Then you will demolish their homes at that other place. So there should be a proper rehabilitation. If you are demolishing their houses, make sure that they are rehabilitated properly at some other place. So there is no sustainable solution. Very important keyword related issue being highlighted over here is this all demolition drives are against welfare governance. So it says that this demolition and rehabilitation both are twin responsibilities of the government in a welfare democracy. This small line itself is loaded with information for your main examination. So if you vouch that your democracy is welfare democracy, that you should be concerned about the vulnerable sections. You cannot merely demolish their houses. Any demolition kind of activity should be followed by rehabilitation. So these are something very good points that you can learn or extract from there, and obviously some thought process is also required. Now, how do you conclude this answer? This matter is still like just it appeared in Supreme Court, so more way forward suggestions, issues, arguments will come on this. But one very good suggestion provided over here is that formulation of a uniform policy for demolition of unauthorized structures and simultaneous rehabilitation of affected families. This you can frame as a way forward, that there should be uniform policy across the country, across the state. There should be no one state should promote these settlements, and no other state should be too much harsh against these vulnerable households. So you should be having uniform policy. You should promote actually rehabilitation after demolition. So these were some very beautiful points identified in this article. Now we will move to our third article. Third article will also seem to be very small and prone to be ignored. What is that? So this article is about private healthcare. We have a lot of private hospitals in our country, and any concern, any decision regarding foreign direct investment, or regarding change of management is going to inflate the cost. That is being highlighted over here in the report of a department related Parliamentary Standing Committee on Health and Family Welfare. This committee submitted its report on affordability and accessibility of healthcare facilities in public and private sector. Let's understand what this article is all about. How can India attract private and foreign investment? India needs to attract this in healthcare, but this attracting of private and foreign investment should not compromise affordability and accessibility. Yes, we do need private and foreign investment in healthcare, but those investment should not result in a costly healthcare system or inaccessible healthcare system. So how can you approach? You can simply write an introduction that India's healthcare needs, requirements are humongous. They are very huge. Given our population, given our poor doctor to population patient ratio, and given our poor lack of proper facilities, proper hospitals in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities that can actually cater to the needs of poor people, we don't have that kind of good hospital, good healthcare facilities. So India's healthcare needs and requirements are humongous. That is true. What is the scenario? To build your point, you can demonstrate what is the scenario in India. First scenario is that public sector hospitals, they are not sufficient. Right, they are not sufficient. And the private sector is penetrating to meet the emerging demand, meet demand and emergency care. That is very much true. You must be observing that in every locality these days, clinics and nursing homes and hospitals are cropping up. So this is the scenario, that public sector hospitals are not sufficient. Their quality is not that good. The behavior of the staff is not that empathetic. So that's why private sectors are like penetrating. And there are poor and vulnerable sections as well, right? And we need to ensure that their healthcare requirements are also being met. So here comes the scope of affordability and accessibility that you must write over here. How? So what is efficient healthcare? It should be affordable, it should be accessible. I'm writing this because this way, like, I'm trying to tell you that how to approach an answer. So I'm just picking up the keywords and elaborating it. So affordable means out of pocket expenditure should not be high. Accessible, that should not be like not far away from their place of residence. They must not be required to travel for 5 kilometers or 10 kilometers just for a small treatment. So it should be accessible as well. Now if you look at private hospitals from the aspect of affordability and accessibility, you will think this way, like in context of this article, that if more funds are being required to promote private hospitals, or if a private hospital is being set up with a huge capital investment, then obviously they will seek to have some profit motive to recover their capital, to recover their costs, and this will obviously be leading to increase in the cost for the users, cost for the patients. So this is the challenge which is being highlighted in this article, that if the government is having any FDI or capital infusion type of policy in private hospitals, it should not ultimately impact or inflate the overall costing of the healthcare system. So it suggests some way forward, very good way forwards. First is, it talks about very good term. It says that aggressive corporatization of the hospitals should not happen. Influx of foreign capital, it should be rationalized. It also says that it should be rationalized in such a way that FDI limits are being rationalized, so that review and rationalize FDI limits, so that the operational management and acquisition of existing health facilities remain in able hands and they do not run merely on profit motives. Then it talks about support the cost effective mid-sized and private hospitals. Government should support mid-sized hospitals which are cost effective. There are lots of hospitals in India, in rural areas, which are actually cost effective and they provide very good services, but they lack funds. The government can support these hospitals as well. Whatever foreign capital, if you are like seeking to get a foreign capital, make sure that those foreign capitals are actually directed towards medical devices, consumables, specialized medicines for rare diseases. So these are some areas which requires a lot of research, a lot of capital. So foreign capital should be promoted in these areas. So that ultimate objective remains to be affordable and accessible healthcare system. So this is something, a very small article loaded with key terms. I tried to identify those keywords, segregate those keywords under different headings. You can read, you can understand, and you can also learn how to frame a structure of well written